Elsewhere in the NFC, you got Calvin Ridley, who came out of nowhere kind of last year. Julio got hurt with the Falcons. Now he's gone. You got Kyle Pitts coming in, but the over-under prop for Ridley this season is 1,365 and a half receiving yards. He barely got over that last year with just 1,374 in 15 games. How are you feeling about Ridley this season, where all eyes are going to be on him as the number one guy in Atlanta?
Right. He no longer has the cover of Julio Jones, who I know he only played 9 games last year. He played 15 the year before. I think this narrative of Julio always being hurt and not being himself is a little bit overblown. Last year that definitely came to fruition. Only had 770 yards, burned fantasy owners. But I don't think Julio Jones is done whatsoever. I know this is kind of an aside, but if you watch there's an interview, DK Metcalf and Justin Jefferson were just on like the Brandon Marshall, Chad Ochocinco podcast, whatever that is. And they both were asked to list their top 5 receivers in the league. And they both said Julio Jones, number one right away. Like he still has the respect of other guys in the league. So, I think taking Julio away from this offense in Atlanta is a pretty big deal. Even though it felt like he didn't have the same impact last year. I think when he's healthy, he's still, a top 5, top 3, even receiver in the game. So we'll see how that affects Calvin Ridley. I mean, there's 2 schools of thought when you look at losing a player like that. One, it's okay, all the attention is now on Calvin Ridley. He's getting the, Tre'Davious White, Jalen Ramsey, Jair Alexander. Those guys are going to be shadowing him now week to week. But on the other hand, it's, well, all these targets that were going to Julio Jones, now Calvin Ridley probably inherits some of those. So, it probably comes in somewhere in the middle. I mean, he was targeted 143 times last season, had 90 catches. As long as he stays healthy, I think those numbers are very replicable. When you're talking about this over under though, man, this one's tough. I think the Devontae one to me is a pretty easy over, but 1365, like you said, he beat that by basically 9 yards last year. If anything goes wrong from an injury perspective, that's something you worry about, but he did play 15 last year, could play as many as 17 this year. So if you think he can replicate last year in terms of a yard per game perspective, then I think the over is probably the right bet here, but man, this one's really difficult to me.
And I think we'll find out pretty early on in the season with this one too, because they took Kyle Pitts, I think the highest ever drafted tight end in NFL history. Well, everyone's already saying, before the draft, I just remember hearing, if there's one Hall of Famer in this draft, it's Kyle Pitts. So we're going to find out pretty early on how much they want to feature their new toy at tight end with Kyle Pitts and Matt Ryan too, who I believe is playing for a contract this season. He's going to want to ball out. But looking down the Atlanta Falcons depth chart here, you got Russell Gage and Zacchaeus or Zacchaeus, the other 2 wide receivers. So Calvin Ridley, I agree with you. This is going to be a tough one here in Atlanta.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel super comfortable saying like you have to bang the over or you have to bang the under on this one. But you made a good point. I mean, the rest of this receiving core is pretty underwhelming. And I'm a Kyle Pitts guy. I haven't heard one person say one bad thing about Kyle Pitts. I don't even think you have to disclose that at this point. Like everybody is a Kyle Pitts guy. But at the same time, he's a rookie. We have no idea if this team's going to be good. I think Atlanta has one of the biggest variances in terms of how this season could go. They could finish 4-13. They could finish, 11-6, and it wouldn't really be all that shocking one way or the other.
The Falcons, right?
Yeah, the Falcons, right. Exactly. And I think Kyle Pitts is going to be really good, but is Kyle Pitts going to step in and be like 1,000 yards, 15 touchdowns right away as a rookie? Realistically, probably not. So I think a lot of the offense, a lot of the receiving game is going to end up falling on the shoulders of Calvin Ridley.